all about owning our platform. Please welcome to the stage Angelica Nwadu of TheShadeRoom and Blavity Editor-in-Chief, Lilly Workneh. Let them feel you, let them hear you.
Thank you. Woo! Thank you, y'all. What's up, everyone? Hello, hello, hello. Hey, Angie. Angelica Nwadu here, founder of TheShadeRoom. Yes. What's up, Afro Tech? How you feeling? Good. Okay, show of hands. How many people in the room follow TheShadeRoom? Show your hands. Show your hands. Amazing.
Wow.
Yes. You got a lot of fans, a lot of roommates, I'm sure, in the room.
Wow, that's amazing.
A lot of people who follow and are engaged with TheShadeRoom. So I want to get into talking about what the platform means, how it's grown. You launched it in 2014, which is amazing, and it's evolved massively in 5 years. It's kind of crazy. But we're here at Afrotech, so I want to talk a little bit about the tech aspect of TheShadeRoom, some of your future plans, the evolution of TheShadeRoom and how it's grown over the years, but also, you know, how you plan on using technology to continue to grow the brand, right? So you are up to a lot. You stay busy. So before we even get into TheShadeRoom, I want us to know a little bit more about who you are as a woman, as a businesswoman, as a person. You know, just to start there, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I first generation Nigerian American.
Hey!
Oh,
Nigerians
really?
in the house.
Hold on, I need Nigerians to really stand up right now.
All right now.
Oh
They're
my
standing
God! What? That is so. Oh my God. Okay, so yeah, my parents migrated here in the early '80s, and I lost my mother to domestic violence when I was growing up. So I grew up in the foster care system, and I ended up, making it to Loyola Marymount University. And shout out to LMU. Do I got any Lions? Oh, I went to school there in Charlotte. Oh.
The mass reunion.
Yeah. So I went to Loyola Marymount University, but I wanted to study accounting.
Okay.
Because I have a little sister and I have sisters, and I wanted to do something that would make me money. So my sole motivation for being in accounting was trying to get money, and I hated it.
You hate
I hate accounting. No disrespect to anybody that's in accounting. It wasn't for me. I was a creative, and my brain just worked differently. But despite knowing that it wasn't for me, I kept pushing on in accounting. When I graduated, I wanted to be an accountant, and so I went to go work for a motorcycle company. I was an accountant for them. And I just remember one day, I was like, I hate my life. Like, I'm depressed, you know what I mean? I hate going to work. This is not what I want to do. And so that day, I was like, I'm going to declare that I'm a writer and see what happens.
Declare, I like that.
Because, I thought being a writer meant being broke. Because it's hard to, everybody used to always tell me it's hard to make money being a writer. They don't really respect that career. And so, but I told myself, I'm just going to say I'm a writer, and let's see what happens. And God is a funny character. Because as soon as I said, I want to be a writer, and started telling everybody, I'm going to be a writer, I'm not doing this, I'm going to be a writer, I literally got an opportunity a week later.
Wow, girl, it's because you declared it.
You declared it. Once you start walking in who you are and not being ashamed of that, then everybody will conspire. The world will conspire to help you. And so, a week later, I met Jordana Spiro.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys watch her, but she's on Dexter and a lot of those shows. And she was like, I'm writing a script. And it's about a girl named Angel who grew up in foster care. And I'm like, oh, this is my script.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So I wrote the script with her. We submitted it to Sundance. It made it into Sundance. And after that, I was like, oh, you can't tell me nothing. I'm a writer now. But I was still working my job. And I remember I went to go to the screenwriter's lab. And I was there for 2 weeks. It was during tax season. And my boss was so mad because he was like, you need to come back home. I think I was there for only a week. And the last day, or I think it was like 3 days left of the program, my boss called me up, and I was supposed to be presenting that day. Like, everybody had to present their movies. It was my first script, so I didn't have a movie to present. So I was going to, do poetry. And so I remember right before I went on stage to do the poem, my boss called me, and he gave me an ultimatum. And he was like, you either get on the flight now and come back, or you're fired.
Wow.
And at that time, my account was looking greasy, okay? It was looking really empty, and I had to make a decision with my heart and not my mind at that time, because it was a crazy decision. But I was like, no, I quit, you know? And 5 minutes later, I go on, I do my poem, I'm crying, not because, you know, of the poem, but because of my job. I lost my job, I don't have any money. And I remember I walk off stage, and Michelle Satter, who's the head of the Sundance Lab, is like, she walks up to me, she's like, I'm gonna give you a grant because I believe in you to write, right? So that to me serves, I think that when you have those experiences in life, it serves as, and I don't know how spiritual you guys are, but it serves as like a reference, a point of reference for the next time that you're believing in something or that you want to do something. You can look back and say, yeah, I remember that one time when I was scared to quit my job. I quit and God made it all work out for me. You know what I mean? Like, yep. And so during that period of time, I went home and I was like, okay, a script is good. This grant is good. It was only $5,000 and my rent was $950. You know what I mean? So that got eaten up really quickly. And I was like, I need to have something that is going to keep me stable, you know what I mean, while I'm unemployed. And so for me, during that time, I was like really invested in media. I loved media. I just loved consuming it. I would call my friends like, girl, do you know what Chris Brown did? You know, he did this.
Well, what year is this? Because Chris Brown did a lot of things.
I was just, you know, I would be their personal, like, tabloid, basically. Yes. And then they were like, you know, because they're all in grad school, and they're looking at me like, Angelica, well, if you're going to do this, why don't you make money doing it? Like, go do something, you know what I mean? And it turned into a business. And I was like, absolutely. So that's kind of when I thought of the idea of the Shade Room.
That's when the idea birthed, essentially. What year is this?
2014.
2014. Yeah. So you manifested your own opportunity. It came to fruition. You took advantage of it. You followed your passion. And this idea comes to you. So what was the idea for the Shade Room at first? What was it meant to be in 2014? And then I want to talk about how it's evolved over the years.
It was meant to be just a side little business. That was the most that I had wanted from it. I thought I was going to have like 100,000 followers, and that was the most. Like, I didn't see much. It was just a plan B. And so I didn't know how to make a website. So I was like, well, I think I was watching some motivation video that was saying, you should start right now on your dreams, don't delay. And so I was like, okay. So I was like, well, how do I start right now? So the only thing I could do was open up an Instagram page, because that's all I knew how to do. I didn't have any money to pay a a website designer. And so I opened it, and a week later, we had 10,000 followers, and I knew from there, I was like, oh, it's rolling.
Hold up. In 1 week, the week you launched, you got 10,000 followers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yes, okay, deservedly. And right now, years later, she has 17 million followers, okay, because that deserves a round of applause.
Thank you.
But that is, a significant number of followers to acquire within 1 week of launching a new platform, right? So tell us about like what that beginning was like. What was that first week like, and how did you acquire that?
So the first week I opened the page up, I made a little logo, you know what I mean? And I started doing what I love to do. I just started instead of telling my friends, I was telling them. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, guys, this is what's going on. Like, everything. And then the first day, it was 300 followers, and I DM'd all of them. And I had conversations with all of them. Even to this day, like, if you DM the Shade Room, you'll get a response. Like, we try to respond to every DM, because it's so important, building that relationship with your audience. But I would DM all of them, and so they got personally invested in me, because they were like, we're doing this together. We're building this together. You know what I mean? Like, she is talking to me, I'm giving her content, she's posting it. I kind of have control over this platform. And that wasn't something that they felt like they had before. And so, after that, talking to them and building this relationship, they took it upon themselves to want to promote this. They were like, y'all better follow this. Go this. Like, they would do it, because they felt like ownership of this platform. And so that's kind of how it was word of mouth. The Shade Room has been word of mouth since the beginning, so that's really what it is. Yeah.
So you got buy-in from a lot of readers, right? A lot of people who were following you, a lot of people who supported and were passionate about the brand. How, were you able to convert that into now acquiring 60 to 100,000 new followers a week? right? That is insane, and that's crazy. And since the panel is really about owning narratives, right? Owning our narrative as a Black collective. So talk about your strategy to grow the platform and really about the purpose of the content that you're creating.
Right. So I think that some of it was strategy, some of it was opportunity, and some of it just was the time. You know what I'm saying? So it's like some of you guys who are wondering, why is my idea not working? I remember I sat with Anastasia of Beverly Hills, or Anastasia of Beverly Hills, and she said that she thought about doing an eyebrow pencil 10 years ago. You know what I mean? But sometimes the time is not right. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes you guys have ideas that what Get Out, I think, was made 10 years ago. You know what I mean? So sometimes your ideas are still sitting for the right time. But we came in at the right time where we were disrupting an industry. So at that time, nobody was going, you know how you guys used to wake up and go to www.this, www.that? People stopped doing that. And so websites were really suffering. And so when I wanted to do it, I did want to make a website, but we unknowingly disrupted the industry because we were on social media. So people were able to get their news in their feed. They didn't have to go anywhere. It was like, oh, I'm scrolling and see my friend, and ooh, I find out this happened. You know what I mean? So it was like, it was something that hadn't been seen before. So anytime you're like you're disrupting something, you're gonna get the first fruits of that disruption for sure. Right. People are gonna be like, what's this? It's new. It's hot. I never, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of what it was that kind of fueled that. But you were talking about
your content, because you actually you revolutionized sort of celebrity news, and talking about how the content evolved too. Like, what made you want to focus on the stories that you were telling at the time? How did you select them? I know people were sending you tips. But, you know, Black folks and a lot of Black celebrities drive culture at large, right? We have huge buying power. We have unmatched influence. So how did you sort of tap into that, and how did you select the kinds of stories that you decided to tell?
Right, so I was very interested in Black culture. That was my interest. And so I knew that there were people out there that were interested in Black culture as well, that just wanted to hyper-focus on Black culture, because that's all they cared about. And so for me, that was, you know, one of the strategies. But the biggest thing was listening to my audience, because I think a lot of times we don't listen to what people are saying. At first I was writing the actual articles, and I would put my own opinion. And then after a while, people were like, we don't want to hear your opinion anymore, because they just didn't agree with it. And they were like, we don't want to hear your opinion. Let us talk, right? And so I was like, a lot of people would just keep going. But I was like, oh no, let me take myself off of the platform and give them a space to talk. And that's when we were like, okay, we don't have opinions.
Right.
I took the opinionated part out of the shade room. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have opinions. We're just telling you what happened, and you're consuming that content, right? And so it became a for us, by us type of cycle. In the morning, they would get up and tell us what they want to see. We would pick from what they wanted to see and then post that. So we only post what they want to see. If it could be news, but if they don't want to see it, then it's not news on our platform. So basically, we're giving them, literally feeding them content that they asked for, which means that they're engaged, the engagement is higher, you know, their support is higher for the site, you know, like they take more ownership of it, because they know, like, they take joy out of saying, oh, I sent that to the Shade Room and now it's up, you know what I mean? And everybody's talking about it. They love that. And so that's kind of what built the Shade Room, is kind of letting the audience build a community on this platform. They chose us, is what I always say. The roommates chose us. We also gave them a name, roommates. You know what I mean? So once you give people a name, once you give your community a name, it's over.
Y'all listening out here, tips. I mean, that is really key, right? You help people feel like they were a part of the brand, right? And so they were the ones selecting. And it's so important to, like, really listen to your audience, right? We're doing the same thing at Blavity. Folks in the room who own their own companies, you're listening to your customers, you're trying to fill a void and attend to the needs that people are asking you to fill, right? So talk about, like, you know, in doing that, some challenges have come along the way. So I want to talk about some of the criticisms you may have faced along the way. People who may say that you are, as some stories may perpetuate stereotypes about the Black community. You know, what do you say to people who have those opinions? How do you address critics who want you to do more positive news on the feed? And what are your plans to sort of address that?
Right. So I think that, the Shade Room does get a bad rap sometimes from certain people who just don't understand the content. I think that people have forgotten what this industry used to look like. Like back in the day, just right before the Shade Room, like they would have sites that would just make up lies or just look at her feet, zoom in, you know what I mean? You call people ugly in their headline. So we've softened this industry a lot because we don't use inflammatory headlines or, you get what I'm saying? And we don't insert our opinions or drag people through the, you know, like if they getting dragged, it's because the audience, they're saying something and they don't like, you know what I mean, what they see. But we don't do that. So I think that we've actually softened it a lot because we talk about God in the mornings. Like that, I remember the first time we posted about God for a morning inspiration, everybody went crazy. They were like, God on this platform, how dare you? You know what I mean?
How dare you?
But black people are very spiritual. So, you know what I mean? Basically how we started to frame the content is based on what their interests are. Black people are spiritual. They also like politics. They also like, you know, all these things. So we just kind of like, you know, gave them a full plate of what they wanted to see. But I think for us, we are a reflection of black culture. So we basically post what's going on in black culture, right? So we post the negative and the positive. And I actually hate to say negative and positive because I don't think black culture is neither negative or positive. I think that it is what it is. And that's kind of what we reflect back to them. You know what I mean? We included TSR positive images, mommy duties, daddy duties, because we want to show black men being fathers like they are, and like, you know, they're very involved in their children's lives. You know, we want to show TSR matrimonies, they're getting married. Black people are getting married, they're in love, they're successful, you know, black excellence. We showcase black talent. Go Off Fridays where we showcase, you know, musicians, and on Wednesdays we paint where we showcase painters. And there's been a lot of people in our community who have been able to use this platform to build big businesses and to be successful. And so I think that for us, we have to stop discounting our stuff. You know what I mean? I notice, you know, just across industries like Tyler Perry Studios, you know, Tyler Perry, you guys, we love Tyler Perry, right? But there are a lot of people who will turn their nose down at Tyler Perry.
Right.
You know what I mean? We have to stop discounting what's ours because what's ours is hot. You know, I mean, he just opened one of the biggest studios that we've ever seen. You get what I'm saying? And I feel like this platform, if we can see the beauty in it, I was telling you back there, we can influence the election.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's talk about that because 2020 is coming up, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, we have a huge presidential election, and we have so much collective power among black folks, especially young black folks, right?
Yeah.
And we are taking action in ways that a lot of us, you know, a lot of generations prior to us have never seen. We have access, we have resources that have never been available before.
Right.
And we have the ability to truly influence not only our local politics and communities, but communities around the country. So knowing, you know, the engagement that you have, I mean, you alone on Instagram, the Shade Room has about 5 billion impressions a month.
Yeah,
right? Which
just on Instagram.
Insane, the amount of reach that you have and the amount of people who are following you who, you know, collectively, that is invaluable, right? The amount of celebrity influencers who follow you and the amount that they're able to reshare, it just continues to multiply. So how, you know, with the election coming up, it is so critically important for us to raise our voices and to demand answers to the questions that we haven't received, to raise our voices around the issues that don't have enough attention around them. So how do you plan on using the platform, both on Instagram and your website, and what other plans you may have to sort of influence 2020 and make sure black issues and votes are accounted for?
So that's why I'm here, because I see a lot of smart people in the audience, a lot of black minds in the audience, and I'm looking to hire, and I just want to know, like, who would be interested in helping us influence this election?
Raise your hand.
Who has ideas
and
things like that?
Ready to help.
Because I need your help, you know? I mean, like she said, I mean, the thing that kind of sparked that idea was, first of all, Issa Rae, who has always shown support, but her saying, well, why don't you influence the election? And I was like, what? You know, and so we posted a petition for Rodney Reed the other day, and I think it had like 13,000 signatures. And my friend, she's really passionate about, you know, law, and she was like, put that on the Shade Room, please. Like, he needs more, you know, attention. And we put it on the Shade Room, and after that, it went crazy, and that petition, I think it's well over 1 million on its way to 2, or if it hasn't surpassed that.
Wow.
And so I think that after that, I was like, well, wait, let's do more of this. Let's really, you know, do more of, you know, impacting that. And so I really want to find ways. I think the main way is to mobilize the roommates in these different states. You know what I mean? To do something. But what is that? And I'm humble enough and open enough to say I need y'all help. You know what I mean? So,
yes, round of applause. I mean, I think that requires, that is a lot, it's humbling, and it's like you're transparent and asking for help and being open to ideas from people, right? Because you run a platform that has massive reach and massive potential to influence folks. And you already have, right? You've changed careers, and you talked about some of the positive images and some of the good things you're doing. So talk about some of the impact specifically that you've driven already. You talked about Rodney Reed, but it's been 5 years now. So what are some of the things that you've done over the years that you're most proud of, that you're most proud of the Shade Room doing?
I think I'm most proud of our philanthropic work. We just started an endowment at Loyola Marymount University. So,
nice.
So African American students, even beyond the Shade Room, when the Shade Room is not a thing. Well, in the future, hopefully it's a thing for a while, but that endowment is still going to be going on.
Forever,
so. We'll be able to give Black students at LMU scholarships, you know what I mean, on and on. And so I think that's one of the most impactful things. We also help to do transitional housing for foster youth. So we have foster youth who are in apartments where they are paying rent towards ownership, right? And so, and they're paying rent. A part of that, we're giving them 3 times their money back, you know what I mean, because of the types of things we're doing. And so I'm very passionate about that because I was growing up in foster care, so housing is a big issue. But just overall, like the scholarships and the giving that we've done is the thing that I'm most proud of.
Nice, awesome. And you've also impacted careers, musicians, celebrities, posting on the Shade Room. I think we undercount and undervalue the amount of influence we have just in terms of like seeing people at their, succeeding or supporting people who may not have, the visibility, the access to a wider audience, right? Which is why media platforms are so critically important, like the Shade Room, like BT, like Blavity, right? Like there are so many important ways that these platforms can be utilized to amplify the voices that don't get seen, that mass media is ignoring, that the mainstream does not care about, right? And so that is the importance. That's why it's so important for platforms like ours to really own the narrative and to change the narrative and to help inspire other people for generations to come, right? I don't want us to undervalue the impact storytelling has, right? To see these images and to read these stories, actually read, right? Like not just sit there and scroll through your feed all day, but to actually care about these issues and to do something about it. So that said, you've driven a lot of impact in that way. But I want to talk about just also the business side of things and how you've been able to scale, right? It being a media business, a lot of people will say media cannot succeed in 2019 because it's changed, right? It's a bleak industry, that it's hard to maintain a successful business. But there may be people out here who work at the intersection of media and technology who want to sort of do what you're doing or create platforms that represent us. So, I kind of want to hear from you on how you've been able to scale the business, and now you're offering original programming. So talk about like how the Shade Room has evolved over the years. You have the website, which, I kind of want to talk about what content goes on that and how you've grown.
Well, I did take investment money in the beginning, right? I took investment money. There was this investor, and he was crazy for investing at the time. Honestly, like, come on, because I didn't even have an LLC at that time, or we wasn't making any money. But some writer her name is Jenna. Jenna, actually, she works for, I don't know if she still works there, but she was at New York Times. And I don't know, she just
Jenna Workneh,
got, she got a hunch, and she was like, hey, I'm going to write about the Shade Room. And that's another thing, we got to work with each other, because she's a Black writer at New York Times, and she looked at me and said, this is a Black media company, let me write about it. And so she wrote about it, and he saw that article, and he reached out to me and was like, I got to have you in this program. So his name is Bryce Roberts. His fund is NDVC. And honestly, he wants to invest in Black companies. I think that after this last round, he had a few Black founders in his round, and I think he's seen something that everybody should see, right? And so he's definitely. We're doing a project, but that's going to come soon, where we're going to invest in a lot of Black companies. But I think that I took the money. It was $100,000. I'll be transparent. I never spent it. I wanted the $100,000 just for confidence. Right? And so, people invest for different reasons, but also he was well connected. And so he also happened to be somebody who didn't believe in taking investment money. And so he kind of drilled that in me. And so I paid him back his money, and I bought my equity back. And after that was the last investment that I took. So it's been bootstrapping, which is extremely hard in media. Because media moves fast. And so, but we've been doing well so far, and we've been able to reinvest and hire and grow and scale. And so for me, it was the knowledge that I received, you know, in those retreats and those programs where I could sit, because you know they do programs where they'll take you on retreats, and you could talk to the founder of Indeed and hear all his mistakes on a one-on-one. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of what helped me to kind of navigate this world.
Nice. Well, that's interesting too, because a lot of the business and a lot of the Shade Room's business, you know, a lot of the impact that it has is really on its Instagram page, right? I know you have the website and you have, you know, you utilize Facebook and Twitter to a degree, but it's definitely not as much as you do on Instagram. And it's sort of, you know, based on the engagement you got in the beginning, it makes sense why you put emphasis on Instagram. But being reliant on these platforms can also be tricky, right? And we're all subject to these algorithm changes. We are all subject to, you know, our content not being seen, our posts not being seen, and having to fight with mega tech companies to sort of make that more visible, but it's also a great tool at the same time. So how have you been able to grow on Instagram? Well, first of all, really, why did you decide to focus on Instagram? And what tips do you kind of have for the audience who are all using social media, and especially Instagram, to sort of grow their businesses and raise awareness around their brands?
Well, there's a lot of things I could say about that. One thing is definitely an issue, right? Because as Instagram begins to change the algorithm, nobody can say they're not affected by the algorithm. But at the same time, our audience has a different habit. So they kind of see us as a website on Instagram. So they go to our site every day. So that kind of helps with we're not as affected by the algorithm as everybody else, but we took a hit. Everybody does.
Page on Instagram every day.
Yeah, they'll go to the page and use it as a website. Like, oh, what's happening today? Because it's like, it's not like an influencer where you just see the picture when you see it. You know? It's like, oh, it's a website. They treat it like that. That's their behavior.
Gotcha.
So we've seen that the same amount of people are still coming to our page. That's how we're growing, because of they're coming to
demand.
the page, right? We're Explore, you know, is nothing compared to what those people are doing when they just come to the page. And so for us, you know, I get different feedback and advice. Some people say, focus on what works for you. You know what I mean? If you have a business and you have a website and you have an Instagram and you have a YouTube, and you can't figure out how to get off of YouTube, you can't figure out what to do with the website, but Instagram is rolling, focus on what's hitting, you know, what's working for you, and then build out. And so that's kind of what we've done. And so now that we're at this place where we're like, hey, we have Shade Room teams at 1.1. Those teams are crazy. Y'all got to go to that page. And then we have, you know, the Shade Room, and, you know, our website, we've built it backwards. You know what I mean? So the website came after the Instagram, and we've been building. It gets millions of page views and unique users there. But the goal is to just build that connection with our audience through text message services, through different platforms. I think that in the music industry, everybody's like, don't sign with the label, like, be independent and things like that. And so now that we are independent, now that there's a lot of businesses coming off of social media, how do we own that audience without, you know, Instagram being able to take it away? You know what I mean? And I think that we need more people to come up in that industry and create, like, I was reading a tweet that said, what if there was a black company that got behind all of the viral talent that we have and just gave them merch, you know, opportunities and all these things to kind of monetize? You see JoJo Siwa, you know what I mean? Like, she had that infrastructure behind her to be able to, you know, monetize that virality. And so I think that we have so many opportunities where we are the internet, low key. Like, we push the internet, we drive the internet. So who's gonna step up and kind of help our talent, our companies, you know what I mean, to be able to own their audience and to be able to scale and move forward? I think that what Blavity is doing, Morgan is doing, is such a big thing. Like, to see all of this talent and all of this, you know, this brain power in one room is such an important thing. What are we gonna do with it? Because we can't, you know, we always talk about building our own table. I can't build a table by myself, but we can build a table. You know what I mean? And that's what it's about.
Absolutely. And I want to touch more on that too, but I also want you to answer, you know, any tips that you may have for people who are on Instagram. Who has Instagram in the room? I mean, yes, pretty much everybody. So, and a lot of us are using it to grow our brand. So, like, you know, considering that the Shade Room has maximized its reach so massively in just 5 years, right? And you were able to come on the gram and gain 10,000 followers in a week. How can people, what are some quick tips that you have in terms of creating content specifically for IG or for social media to help your business grow? Because, you know, you add your posts are so uniquely TSR that, like, anyone can recognize that, right? So what are some of the tips? One is building a page that has a demand or building a demand for people to actually come to the page, right?
Yes.
And not relying on the algorithm, getting people to actually come visit you. What are some other quick tips that you may have?
You have to be consistent. The Shade Room posts almost 70 times a day, which is sick.
70?
Yeah, well, like 40 to 70 times a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
I mean, how many people do you have on staff?
Well,
who's posting this stuff? How many people?
Well, we have like now we have about like 10 writers on staff, and so like they'll just, they work full time, but the whole company is 20 people, so it's we're hiring aggressively right now. So like I said,
hiring.
Jobs at TheShadeRoom.com.
Okay.
We're hiring a CTO, a COO, a head of video, all that, and we got benefits, and it's good pay. So, but
I love it.
So please apply.
Yes,
but
the consistency.
The consistency, and really what it is about. A lot of people think that you cast a wide net. Like, when you go fishing, it's counterintuitive business a little bit, because when you go fishing, you want to cast a wide net to get all the fish you could possibly get. And that's how people treat business. Like, how can I reach everybody? How can I get everybody? And what I would say is, it's the exact opposite in business. You want to cast a very specific net to get a specific kind of fish. And then once you get that fish, everybody else is going to want to come in. Like, if you look at Instagram was first for, like, photographers. And then everybody wanted to get on. Facebook was for college kids, and everybody wanted to get on. And so I would say find a niche audience and find out what they don't have. Give them what they don't have, and keep focusing on them. Don't change your strategy, because I know everybody was like, take the Shade Room and make it more mainstream. That's the that's the word for white. You know what I mean? And so, but I was like, nah, I like Black culture. These are my people. We're gonna keep focusing on this.
Right.
And they following. I go in different offices. I'm like, you follow the Shade Room? Okay. But so what I would say is, be very specific about your audience. The more specific you are, the better chance you have at success.
Nice. Nice tips. Well, we are almost out of time, but before we depart, I kind of want to know what's next for the Shade Room, how you plan on utilizing technology to continue to build the brand, what you have coming up in 2020 and beyond, and any parting words that you have with this audience. We have a room full of thousands of super talented creatives, technology experts, and people with high potential to truly change not only media, but tech at large. So knowing, what you've done and experiencing all you've, experienced, what can you share with the room, and what do you have coming up next?
So we have a lot of things coming up next. We're doing original programming. We're building an app that's going to be crazy, and shoot, I still need people. So like I said, I'm going to keep saying that. I'm going to plug it every chance I get. But we're doing a lot that we're rolling out. You guys are going to see it, podcast shows, all of that. So it's going to be amazing. We have a lot coming up. But the thing that I want to say is, I do want to talk about maintaining our mental health. And I think that the reason I want to talk about that is because I think that when I was coming up, and I'll just be completely transparent with you guys, when I was coming up, being a Black woman does come with other things. You're not just working, but you're working with a lot of pressure, a lot of stereotypes and stigmas and blockages and all of that type of thing. Yeah. And nobody really tells you how to maintain your mental health once you get something big, right? Yes. And so I think that for us, we have to kind of pay attention to that, because those past traumas, or all of those things that we do deal with being Black, this is a real reality. Can hinder your success, right? And so I would say those issues, start working on them now, start addressing those issues now, start getting help, start seeing, a therapist and all those things, because the major thing that will stop you from success is yourself, right? That's actually the only thing that can stop you from success. How about that, right?
Absolutely, do the inner work.
Yeah, and then on top of that, I would say if you have an idea, don't sit on it, because it's gone. I have had 10 ideas, okay, that have been just gone because I sat on them. You get what I'm saying? If you have an idea and you think it's a great idea, fight to the death to get that idea out. Do not let it sit. Do not let it just stop at oh, I don't have a person who could do this for me, or I don't have this, I don't have that money. Who cares? Figure it out, do it, push forward with your ideas. Go to these conferences, link up with people. Oh, you do an app? Oh, you know how to do this? Okay, let's link up. Let's build something together. Because if you like I said, there's so many ideas that I've had that just fell to the wayside and somebody picked it up. You are not so special that your idea is only in your head. Somebody else got that idea, trust me. So I would say, do that, do your idea. And I think Issa said one thing before that I really respected, which was we always want to work with somebody that's up higher than us and not working like this. You know what I'm saying? And when you work like this, actually, that's really effective. That's really effective. You can get more done, more resources and things like that. So I would say just see value in ourselves. Let's see value in where we are now. And if you got a classmate who's a really dope, tech person, like don't look over him. He might be the one to help you be the next Instagram. And by the way, we need to build another social media app.
Yes.
But, that's another thing. I feel like
there are folks in the room who can help you do that. So if speaking of like building collective power and working with people in the room and with our peers, if people have ideas, especially around 2020, as you mentioned earlier, and they want to share ideas on how to utilize the Shade Room and the roommates to build collective power, to build a social media app or whatever it may be to continue the brand, where do they share them? How can they reach out to you? What's the method and process for that?
So jobs@theshaderoom.com. You could reach out there immediately, and we're looking at that all day. Send your resume and your cover letter. Like I said, we're hiring for a CTO, COO, a head of video. We want somebody to help with the app that we're building. I mean, it's just a lot of things. So I would just say, apply. There's so many different positions available because we're growing and molding into who we want to be. So it's a great environment, and like I said, good pay, good benefits.
All right now. Y'all give it up for the amazing Angie Nwadu. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Wonderful time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Look at this.
All right, all right.